Shalom, shalom to all my fellow brothers and sisters out there. It's me again, Damian Powell from YeshuaSavesAll.com. Peace be to you in the name of our Father, Yahweh, and our Master, the Son of Yahweh, Yeshua HaMashiach. So today, my fellow brothers and sisters, we're going to be talking about Yom Kippur. Is it a fast day or a feast day? Okay, so just a reminder, this week, on the 6th day of the week, which the world knows as Friday, which is the 27th, okay, it's equivalent to the 10th day of the 7th month on the Zadok priestly calendar, is Yom Kippur, which means that it is a no work day. It is a Shabbat, okay? And the reason for this message is due to a movement within the Torah community. They say that Yom Kippur is a feast day, a day where we should be eating like the rest of the feast days. And I just want to make this message to show that it is a fast day. Okay, so as people say, spoiler alert, but we're going to go through the witnesses concerning this, okay, so that you do not transgress against Yahweh on this important day. So let's start with Leviticus chapter 6, verse 23. Leviticus chapter 6, verse 23 in the Samaritan Torah says, "And every sin offering that will come from its blood into the tent of meeting to make atonement and set apartness shall not be eaten. It shall be burned with fire." So we have every sin offering, which comes into the tent of meeting to make atonement. And set apartness shall not be eaten. It shall be burned with fire. So keep that in mind. Let's go to the same chapter, same verse, Leviticus 6:23, and I'm going to read it from the complete Jewish scriptures. "But no sin offering, which has had any of its blood brought into the tent of meeting, in the set apart place is to be eaten. It is to be burned up completely." Okay, so this is exactly what we see happening on Yom Kippur. There is a bull for the iniquity offering made for Aaron, and a goat for the iniquity of the people. Okay, so now let's go to Leviticus chapter 16 concerning Yom Kippur. Leviticus chapter 16, I'm going to read verses 11 through 20 and then verse 27. And I'm going to read it from the Samaritan Torah. "And Aaron shall offer the bull of the sin offering, which is for himself, and make atonement for himself and for his household. And he shall slaughter the bull of the sin offering, which is for himself. And he shall take a fire pan full of coals of fire from upon the altar before Yahweh, and 2 handfuls of finely ground sweet incense, and bring it inside the veil. And he shall put the incense on the fire before Yahweh, that the cloud of incense may cover the cover that is on the testimony. And if not, he will die. And he shall take some of the blood of the bull and sprinkle it with his finger before the cover on the east. Also in front of the cover he shall sprinkle some of the blood with his finger 7 times. And he shall slaughter the goats of the sin offering, which is for the people, and bring its blood inside the veil, and do with its blood as he did with the blood of the bull, and sprinkle it on the cover and in front of the mercy seat. And he shall make atonement for the set apart place, because of the impurities of the sons of Israel, and because of their transgressions in regard to all their sins. And he shall do for the tent of the meeting, which dwells with them in the midst of their impurities. And when he goes in to make atonement in the set apart place, no one shall be in the tent of meeting until he comes out, that he may make atonement for himself and for his household and for all the assembly of Israel. And he shall go out to the altar that is before Yahweh and make atonement for it. And he shall take some of the blood of the bull and of the blood of the goat and put it on the horns of the altar on all sides. And with his finger he shall sprinkle some of the blood on it 7 times and cleanse it and consecrate it from the impurities of all of the impurities of the sons of Israel. Now let's go to verse 27. And the bull of the sin offering and the goat of the sin offering, whose blood was brought in to make atonement in the set apart place, shall be taken outside the camp, and they shall burn their hides, their flesh, and their refuse in the fire. So, as we see from the scriptures above, that none of the bull or the goat was to be eaten. And again in verse 27 is a direct match to Leviticus chapter 6, verse 23, which we quoted earlier. You see the bull of this is chapter 16, verse 27. I'm quoting it again. The bull of the sin offering and the goat of the sin offering, whose blood was brought in to make atonement in the set apart place. So remember, the bull for the iniquity offering was for Aaron, and the goat for the iniquity offering, the sin offering, was for the people. So let's go back to Leviticus chapter 6, verse 23. And every sin offering that will come from its blood into the tent of meeting to make atonement in set apartness shall not be eaten. It shall be burned with fire. Okay, so the ancients understood it, right? So we have to take that and apply it. So let's go and look at all of the other witnesses concerning Yom Kippur. What are we expected to do? Let's go to Temple Scroll. We're going to go to the Temple Scroll, column 25, verse 11, and the complete Dead Sea Scrolls. For those who have the complete Dead Sea Scrolls, it's found on page 199. The Temple Scroll says, the 10th of this month is the Day of Atonement. You shall mortify yourselves. You shall mortify yourselves. For any person who does not mortify himself on this self same day shall be cut off from his people. So it's important that we understand that we have to do what Yahweh is telling us to do to stay in covenant with him, because he says if we don't do this, we'll be cut off, right? So the Temple Scroll is telling us we must mortify ourselves. So let's go to Oxford Languages. Oxford Languages defines mortify as to subdue the body of its needs and desires by self-denial or discipline. So we have to subdue the body of its needs. All right. Now let's go to collinsdictionary.com. Defines mortify as to punish one's body or control one's physical desires and passions by self-denial, fasting, etc., as means of religious or ascetic discipline. Okay, so there it is, right? Self-denial, one's physical desires, okay? Self-denial is followed by fasting in Collins Dictionary. And this is brought out in the Complete Jewish Scriptures translation, okay? So we saw self-denial. So let's look at how the Complete Jewish Scriptures translate Leviticus 23, verse 26. Yahweh said to Moses, the 10th day of this 7th month is Yom Kippur. You are to have a set apart convocation. You are to deny yourselves. And you are to bring an offering made by fire to Yahweh. So by not giving your body its needs, such as food and water, which we need to survive, by fasting is a perfect example of self-denial and mortifying yourself. Let's go to Leviticus chapter 23 and read verses 26 through 32 in the Samaritan. Leviticus chapter 23, verses 26 through 32. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, on exactly the 10th day of this 7th month is the Day of Atonement. It shall be a set apart reading for you. And you shall humble your souls. So keep that in mind. You shall humble your souls and present an offering by fire to Yahweh. And you shall not do any work on this same day, for it is a day of atonement to make atonement on behalf before Yahweh your Elohim. For any nephesh, any soul who will not humble himself on this same day, he shall be cut off from his people. For any soul who does any work on this same day, that soul I will destroy from among her peoples. It's an important day. And you shall not do any work. It is to be a statute throughout your generations and all your dwellings. It is to be a Shabbat of complete rest to you, a Shabbat Shabbaton. And you shall torture your souls on the 9th of the month at evening. From evening until evening, you shall rest on your Shabbat. Hallelujah. So we know that a day begins in the evening. So that means Yom Kippur is on Friday, which means it starts the previous night before. Thursday, night to Friday, night is Yom Kippur, because a day is evening to evening. Okay, so we saw that the Samaritan says to humble your souls, right? So humbling our souls during Yom Kippur, a synonym for torture is to afflict. So how can we humble our souls? Let's take a look. Psalms chapter 35, verse 13. I'm going to read it from the Septuagint. Psalms chapter 35, verse 13 in the Septuagint. But I, when they troubled me, put on sackcloth and humbled my soul with fasting. There we go. So how do we humble our souls, as we read in the Samaritan Torah? By fasting. Let's go to Leviticus chapter 16, verse 29 through 31 in the Samaritan. In the 7th month, on the 10th day of the month, you shall torture your souls and not do any work, whether a citizen, which is the native born, or the proselyte, the Gerim, the Gentile who's joined themselves to Yahweh, who've become one with the native born. Okay? He says, in the 7th month, on the 10th day of the month, you shall torture your souls and not do any work, whether a citizen or the proselyte, sojourning among you. For it is on this day that atonement shall be made for you to cleanse you. You will be clean for all your offenses before Yahweh. It is to be a Shabbat of rest for you, that you shall torture your souls. It is a permanent statute. So again, Oxford Languages lists afflict as a synonym for torture, that the Samaritan translation uses for Yom Kippur. So afflict is a synonym for torture. So now let's go to Isaiah chapter 58, verse 3 in the Aramaic. The Aramaic says, why have we fasted and you have not seen? Why have we afflicted ourselves and you took no notice? So we know what afflict means, right, in context. But when we look at it, it's in the same verse. We see fasting and afflicting. But let's take a look at another example, another witness. Matthew chapter 9, verse 14 through 15, HebrewGospels.com. Matthew chapter 9, verse 14 through 15, HebrewGospels.com. The Talmudim, the disciples of Yochanan, John came unto Yeshua Mashiach, saying, why do your disciples not afflict themselves? Keep that in mind. Why do your disciples not afflict themselves like us and the Pharisees? So Yeshua Mashiach said to them, because of the bridegroom, while he is alive, all of them who are with him are not able to be quenched. But when the time comes, that man will hide the bridegroom, then they will fast. So we have the same things we saw in Isaiah. We see afflict and fast. That is the context. Now, let's look at Damascus document. Damascus document, column 6, verse 19. I'm going to read it from the complete Dead Sea Scrolls, which is on page 134. It says, they shall keep the Shabbat day according to its exact interpretation, and the feast and the day of fasting, according to the finding of the members of the new covenant in the land of Damascus. So the day of fasting is Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. Let's take a look at the Damascus document, manuscript from cave number 4, the complete Dead Sea Scrolls on page 157. They shall not bathe or wash their garments on the great day and fast on the Day of Atonement. Hallelujah. 2 Chronicles chapter 8, verse 13 in the Aramaic. 2 Chronicles chapter 8, verse 13 in the Aramaic. Even after a certain rate every day, offering according to the commandment of Moshe, on the Shabbats and the solemn feast, 3 times a year, in the feast of unleavened bread, and in the feast of fasting, and in the feast of tabernacles. So we see that the translation of Aramaic says the feast of fasting, which is another one that is called in the Dead Sea Scroll. The Dead Sea Scrolls calls it the exact same thing. Let's look at the complete Dead Sea Scrolls. Prayer for Festivals, 1Q34 is found on page 382. It says this is a prayer for the Day of Atonement. It says, prayer for the Day of Atonement. Remember, O Yahweh, the feast of mercies at the time of return. Thou hast established it for us as a feast of fasting and an everlasting precept. You knowest the hidden things and the things revealed. So right there we see the Day of Atonement, and we see feast of fasting and everlasting precept. Hallelujah. And the feast of mercies, right? Because we're asking for forgiveness of our transgressions. And we already know, Titus 2:14, Yeshua is giving himself up for us for all violation of the Torah. Hallelujah. But we still observe the Day of Atonement. Now, let's go to, because it's an everlasting precept. Let's go to the commentary of Habakkuk. The commentary of Habakkuk, or Habakkuk. The complete Dead Sea Scrolls found on page 515. Commentary of Habakkuk found on the complete Dead Sea Scrolls, page 515 says, woe to him who causes his neighbors to drink, who pours out his venom to make them drunk, that he may gaze on their feast. So they give us the interpretation of it. It says, interpreted. This concerns the wicked priest who pursued the teacher of righteousness to the house of his exile, that he might confuse him with his venomous fury. And at the time appointed for rest, for the Day of Atonement, he appeared before them to confuse them and to cause them to stumble on the day of fasting, their Shabbat repose. Hallelujah. Let's go to Acts chapter 27, verse 9 in the Aramaic. Lambda's Aramaic Peshitta. There we remained for a long time until the day of the Jewish fast was over. And since it had now become dangerous for anyone to sell, Paul gave them advice. So let's take a look at the same chapter, same verse from the Aramaic English New Testament. And it says, and we were there a long time until after the day of the Jewish fast. And there's a footnote marked number 205 in the Aramaic English New Testament, which says, this is Yom Kippur. So the Jewish fast is Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. So we see plenty of witnesses connecting back to Leviticus chapter 6, verse 23, Leviticus 16, and all the witnesses even found in the Dead Sea Scrolls, showing that Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, is not a feast day to eat food. It is a fast day. Hallelujah. So prayerfully, this message will clear up any confusions or misinterpretation of the scriptures and allow for complete obedience to Yahweh. And as always, may Yahweh bless you in Yeshua's name. Shalom.